Welcome to the Field of 68 Mid-Major Show alongside Rocco Miller and Sean Paul. My name is Vince Wolfram. We hope you had a very happy holiday season, a very happy new year, because in 2026, the games in the college basketball is not stopping. 39 mid-major games were on the schedule on New Year's Day yesterday, and 24 of them were decided by 13 points or less. To make that even better, 13 of those games decided by just 5 points or less. Nonstop basketball, great basketball, might I add, Sean Paul. Yesterday, it was like a 2026 block party on Mid-Major Avenue.
Yeah, there was a lot of wall-to-wall action. Probably one of the last days like that we're going to get until the conference tournament. Just so many games, so much to watch from the beginning of the day to the end of the day with Cal Poly upsetting UC San Diego. It was a very eventful day, so I'm glad we were all able to witness that on New Year's Day. And it's going to be a very jam-packed season of conference play basketball at the mid-major level.
100%. And Rocco, our guy, has been running all over covering basketball. It's one of those where in the world is Rocco situations. We're at the Santa Cruz Pier one day. We're in Miami the next, Connecticut. Where are you today, Rocco? You've been all over, my man.
Yeah, Vince, it's just part of the journey. I'm enjoying as much as possible. I think I planned out a quick East Coast swing during both holidays, now back in the saddle down here at Stanford today. I know a little bit out of our jurisdiction on this show, but a top 10 potential team in Louisville is in town. Kind of a cool opportunity for those in the West. We're not used to seeing ACC teams come out, and so Stanford and Cal they'll host them, and obviously they have Carolina and Duke coming later this year. But more importantly, mid-major action out in the East was awesome. Got to see 3 games in the MAC on Monday. That's hard to pull off, but gosh, Connecticut is small enough where you can do it. And then down in Miami, what a game between FIU and Liberty. We'll get into that.
Yeah, let's just get into the games now. Sean, I'll open it up to you first. Your best mid-major games of the week. Where are we starting?
Yeah, yesterday before as like a little appetizer to the Cal Poly upset was Utah Valley. I guess they're kind of at the same time, but Utah Valley against Tarleton State. This was a really good game. It was one that has a lot of stakes in the WAC because of course the league only has 7 teams this year. Utah Valley got that big win over California Baptist the other day. Then they went to a really tricky spot against a Tarleton State team with a lot of talent. And if you told me that Dior Johnson was going to score 36 points and that Cam McDowell was going to score 26 points, I would probably guess that this would have been an upset win for Tarleton State. But Todd Phillips and his coaching staff did an excellent job in the second half kind of game planning around what this Tarleton State team is going to do. And they went to some 1-3-1 zone. They went to a lot of different defensive looks, and it was really tough for that Tarleton State team in the final 12 or so minutes of the game to generate good offensive looks. It was a lot of getting to the foul line, which, hey, that's going to happen sometimes, but they weren't able to do much in the half court in the final couple minutes of the game, and that was really the differentiator here because it wasn't the best defensive night from a Utah Valley team that is one of the best defensive teams in mid-major basketball. They allowed 1.12 points per possession, but they were so dominant with their length on the interior offensively. Jackson Holcomb continues to be a monster. He had 22 points, another big game for him. Hayden Welling was really good with 15 points. Isaac Hawkins made some big plays late, adding 12 points. Just overall, the depth and the just pure talent and experience of this Utah Valley team really stood out for me, and the way they were able to win this game, because it was a really tricky spot. It was one that a lot of teams probably lose in that scenario, but just the stick-to-itiveness of this Utah Valley team was able to pick it up late in the game and pull out a really clutch victory.
There you go. A new word pulled out of the dictionary here in 2026. I like that, Sean. And like you mentioned, for Utah Valley, this is a nice win. And not only is it the first loss given to Tarleton State in their new EECU arena, but this is the best start that the program's had at Utah Valley at 12-3 in its program Division I history. So this is not only just a win in the right direction, but a record-setting one as well. You talked about the free throw line. Jackson Holcomb, if you read that stat line, he was there a lot and managed to capitalize on a lot. Talk about his role, I guess, as a leader on this team and how he was able to lead them down the stretch in this one.
Yeah, Jackson Holcomb, like last year, he only averaged around 5 points per game, and that was a Utah Valley team that was really talented. They had a lot of pieces that transferred up with Dominic Nelson going to Iowa State, with Tanner Toolson going to TCU, really opened a lane for Jackson Holcomb to really come along. And he's not a shooter. He's only shooting 15% from three. He's not the most athletic guy in the world, but he just knows how to make winning basketball plays. He's really tough. He's really good at getting inside. As we can see, he draws a lot of fouls. Just the overall development in his game has really been something to watch this year. And he's come up big for him when they've needed him most. Like in that Cal Baptist game, 25 points, 5 assists. In the Tarleton State game, 22 points, 4 assists. And on the defensive end, he's really important too. Like he can defend multiple positions. He's just a really high IQ player, knows how to play in this system, and he's become one of the most indispensable players in this conference. He might not win Conference Player of the Year because Dominic Daniels is a monster and Dior Johnson's in the conference too, and he's going to put up big scoring numbers. But there might not be a more important player to a team in the WAC than Jackson Holcomb is to Utah Valley.
And the Utah Valley win streak proves that. It's a nice teller of that. They've won 10 of their last 11, 7 straight wins, and they go to Abilene Christian for their next game, which will be a good one. Rocco, let's head to you. Best mid-major wins of the week. I know you probably saw a lot of them, so talk to me about which one you got here first.
Well, I mean, Liberty was supposed to beat FIU when they went down there for the Conference USA opener, but I wanted to recap that game to start because it was such a thriller. It was arguably one of the best games we've seen over the break, certainly for the conference opener. I think the majority of the expectations across Conference USA and even here in our world of mid-major basketball on Field of 68 is FIU is typically a bottom feeder. You know, their coach, Jeremy Ballard, will be the first one to tell you they were 2 votes away from being the last place team in the preseason poll. But, you know, Sean Paul and I, we've talked about FIU a few times. This team is deep, and they recruited heavily in the portal. They spent a little bit of money, and they are very competitive. And there's actually like an emerging freshman that just had a heroic effort in this Liberty game, although FIU did fall short 97-94 in overtime. Eric Dabami, and he went off again here this morning, right before we recorded. FIU dominated New Mexico State by 15. So now, if you didn't know after the Liberty game, I hope everybody knows now that FIU is a contender in this league, back to 1-1. Corey Stevenson had all sorts of NBA scouts looking at him on press row next to me, getting a lot of feedback there. He does really kind of everything, and he's an incredible athlete. Great offensive rebounder, great shot blocker, great in the passing lane, stealing the ball, basically doing a bunch of things that contribute to winning. And then Zwadi Jackson, the former New Mexico State Aggie, what a great piece to have down the stretch. He actually helped get this game that I was at to overtime with a lot of his leadership. He basically had no shot attempts till the last 4 minutes of the game. He ends up with 7 because he was really dependent on it, and he knows how to handle late moments. So I just like the makeup of FIU. I hope they can stick together because I think they have a really high ceiling if they can continue growing as a team. As for Liberty, first of all, Brett Decker, 27 points in that game, Vince. And he's probably a high major player, to be honest. I know Richie McKay does not want me saying that out loud. But, I mean, he is an unbelievable shooter. You cannot leave him for catch and shoots. He's smooth. He moves and glides without the ball. He's an acceptable defender. Obviously, that will be the big key if he does end up in a high major team in the future. He's a sophomore, but he's just one of those players that you would love a program like Liberty to be able to have for 4 years because he would be a star in March Madness by then and possibly get a Liberty type of team to the Sweet 16. But what a game he had, and Caden Matheny came on down the stretch to end up with 25. But one of the main takeaways I had from Liberty, I've seen them over the years here and there in person, is it's hard to find a better team passing the ball. They're just unbelievably fluid with passing the ball. I haven't even mentioned Zach Cleveland, their superstar. He only had 10 total points, but the guy does everything, kind of like Stevenson for FIU. So playing a lot through Cleveland and having and Josh Smith, their transfer, who sat out basically 2 years from Stetson, he really, really stepped up. We'll see what he can do again tonight. Liberty's about to play Kennesaw State tonight. So I just think the way they move the ball, they don't use a lot of pieces. Colin Porter, Matheny, Decker, and Cleveland all played 40 minutes or more. So they really depend on those 4. So they're really just looking for some sort of piece in the front court because Isaiah Ennin is out for the season, and he was going to be a big piece. So now Josh Smith is starting to emerge as maybe that guy, but they also are experimenting with the freshman TJ Drain and also a little bit of Xander Xander Yates. So we'll see how that plays out over the Conference USA season. But Liberty's a fascinating team because of the style and how quickly they move the ball, passing the ball.
Yeah, and you talk about them not using that many pieces, but the pieces they have are so strong. You talk about Decker, a guy that's shooting over 50% from behind the arc. Matheny, like you mentioned, 25 points, and we're not even talking about their star. And in this game, it was one where FIU dominated in the paint. They won the glass, but after 17 lead changes and 10 ties, it's Liberty that comes out on top. What do you think about the makeup of this team that in a game like this, where a big component like rebounding doesn't go their way, how do they win a game like this? And do you think that can continue in conference play?
No, they're winning with efficiency, Vince, because I think they're going to get out rebounded a lot of nights. They're small, but Matheny, Porter, and Cleveland, those three guys, they played a ton of games together. And again, that's over the years, the best mid-major teams, the ones that can win in March. Obviously we're in a tougher era now with more money at the top, but that's the formula you need to be able to advance against the bigger schools. And I know there's a big chip on the shoulder of the Flames because last year in the NCAA tournament, they got shipped out to Seattle, had to play Oregon kind of in their backyard. And the game was over in about 5 minutes. And I know if they can get back to March Madness, they want to do everything they can to compete and figure out a way to be in whatever game they're in and have a chance to win late. And Josh Smith, again, he's starting to get more comfortable off of those injuries. He comes in and gets 13 points. A lot of those came late. He had a huge block shot in one of the late FIU possessions and a bunch of clutch rebounds. So he did have 9 of the 31 rebounds for the team in this particular game. Again, I want to see how he does against like a Kennesaw tonight and some of the other teams in Conference USA, because so many of these Conference USA teams are full of athletes. And but if Liberty's making enough shots and creating really good looks, they're going to be able to build big leads and bury teams. But I think they're tough when they get down in a hole. It gets tough for them to come back because of some of the similar challenges on the glass. So it's a fascinating team to watch.
No, certainly, and a great win for them over FIU 97-94. Liberty starts CUSA play 1-0 for the first time in its 3 years in the league. Sean, I'll go back to you. Another mid-major game this week that you marked down, the Sycamores getting a nice overtime win.
Yeah, this one isn't just about the overall result. I just think the whole story about what this game was for Indiana State was really important. Obviously, their head coach, Matthew Graves, had a heart surgery about 3 months ago, and this was his first game back on the sidelines, and Indiana State was able to win this game. Like, to me, that's just one of those things, more than basketball. And Indiana State, the way they were able to win this game, they got down fairly early. They were down by 11 points late in the first half. Tyler Lundblade, I think he made 7 total threes, but I think he made all of them or 6 of them in the first half. He was just completely unconscious, but he struggled a bit in the second half, and that kind of opened the window for Indiana State to come back. But just their ability to stay in this game and then make enough big shots late in the second half. They had a lead by 6, and then they lost it when Miller hit a big 3 for Belmont to send the game to overtime. It was a great play. He drilled it, goes to OT. Indiana State had a lead in OT, then they lost it again, and then Ian Scott goes to the foul line, hits a shot, misses a shot, and then Nick McLean ends up missing a layup for Indiana State to secure the win. But for this Sycamores team to miss 13 foul shots, for them to allow Belmont to come back in this game the way they did late in that game, and for them to win in overtime tells me a lot about how tough this team is. And they're a team that's mostly built with guys from the non-D1 level. You have Xavier Hall, who was a transfer from the non-D1 level. He's a senior point guard. Ian Scott, he was a transfer from the NAIA level. Those were 2 of their most important players in this game. Then you have Camp Wagner, who's been around the program for a while. He made 5 threes. And then Derek Vorse was really important in the second half with his ability to utilize that short roll and get to the basket. But just overall, the storyline here is really important to me. Just the way that Graves was able to come back and get this win. It was just one of those more than basketball things. And especially for an Indiana State team that was a 3 overtime loss against Bradley a week beforehand. It was just one of those games that was really important for the Missouri Valley Conference race, because Belmont, one of the favorites to win the league, they pick up an early loss as Illinois State continues to win games. They're 4-0 in league play. Northern Iowa's doing their thing. They're 3-0 in league play. And then Indiana State's out there playing spoiler a little bit to Belmont. So I think that game could have a lasting impact in what we see happening in the Missouri Valley Conference race moving forward.
100%. You erase multiple second half deficits. You survive the missed free throws late. A lot of things fell in the favor of Indiana State as this game moved on. But what impressed me most, Sean, and I want to get your thoughts on this, 86% of their makes were assisted. This team's chemistry jumped off the page, I think, to me. Do you see it the same way? And what do you see from this offense that makes them so dangerous?
Yeah, they move the ball really well, and that's kind of been a theme for them throughout the entire season. They're 13th in how many of their made field goals are assisted. That it's 64% of them. Like, they are really good at moving the basketball. It's not a thing unique to this game, and it's kind of like what I said about Ian Scott. Like, he's a four-man, but he moves the ball really well. You have Xavier Hall, who also is a really solid point guard. Everybody on that team is unselfish. Even Derek Vorse at that 5 spot can move it a little bit. So the fact that everybody is able to space the floor, they're able to pass it, the pick and roll is a big part of that offense at times. So just the ability for everybody to really shoot the ball, even Vorse, if you leave him open, he can hit a three. So that floor spacing plays a really big role in their ability to pass the ball, because teams really have to get out on them and defend that three-point shot, and it can create some lanes and some back cuts and some good passes. So this Indiana State team plays really together. They haven't shot the ball as good as they want to from three this year, only 29%, and almost half of their shots come from three. So the fact that they've been pretty solid overall, 8-7. They've won a fair amount of D1 games. They almost beat Bradley, like I said earlier. So the fact that they've been pretty competitive in most of their Missouri Valley Conference games, and they've shot that poor from three throughout the year, if they're able to shoot it a little bit better, they can continue playing spoiler against some of these teams like Illinois State, like Murray State. Going to Terre Haute will not be an easy game for any team in conference play.
100%. Indiana finds a way to beat a tough Belmont team. 24 assists on 28 made field goals. It's the most assists they've had against a Division I opponent in just over a couple of years. Rocco, next game, who we got?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think we got to go to Cal Poly over UC San Diego last night. Sean touched on it for a brief minute there in the open, and it's important for multiple reasons. One, UC San Diego, for the most part, up until about 2 weeks ago, was humming along as our top team. They get snipped in their inter-city rivalry to San Diego right around our last episode. And now they did have a bounce-back win in between, so it looked like we were good to go Tritons-wise, another quest for the championship, and perhaps they still will. But they go into Cal Poly, a team that's kind of been all over the map this year. They do have a road upset at Utah earlier this season. They have a couple other decent wins. And we all know Mike DeGeorge is an incredible coach based on what he did last year, but he's replacing pretty much everybody from last year. But did such a great job with bringing in both Hamad Musa and Peter Bandelj. Musa is leading the Big West right now in scoring, and after last night's game, he's at 21 a game. Last night's game was helter-skelter. At one point, Cal Poly trailed by 9, 40-31 early in the half. Then they get really, really locked down defensive, which is fascinating because they play such a crazy tempo pace for stretches this year. They've been number one in the country in tempo. I think they were fourth going into last night. And they end up holding UC San Diego to no points in the last basically 4 minutes. I think it was 3 minutes and 50 seconds. And just chipped away, and finally got the game-winning bucket from Bandelj eventually with 18 seconds to go, and held on for a 67-65 Big West stunner. And that gets Cal Poly actually to 2-1 now in the league. They had a couple early December games in this league, and it knocks UC San Diego down to 1-1. So I think it proves a couple of things. One, Cal Poly's here to stay. They're going to continue to fight, and they're good enough to play with the league's best. I think number two, UC San Diego might have a couple leaks in the armor in terms of, I saw a couple of their offensive possessions late last night, uncharacteristically throwing the ball away, something that they were so fine-tuned on last month when they won the tournament at Disney World. And I think also, Caden Ward has been an incredibly good one-and-done defensive rebounder for the Mustangs, one of the better ones in the conference. And I think if they can continue that formula with both Musa and Bandelj bringing the scoring, Ward with the rebounding, and then nothing wrong with the tempo they play, Vince, but playing that tempo with also staying under control and not giving away 20 turnovers a night can really start to mold this into a winning formula like we saw late last year. And so getting a little bit of a head start in year two under DeGeorge in terms of trying to make that move in the Big West.
Yeah, you talked about it. UC San Diego had a little bit of a second half stall offensively. They went ice cold after half, despite holding the lead for most of the night. And I guess I want to talk about this from the Cal Poly perspective too. In the same notion that Sean's had earlier with Indiana State's win, a pretty early jolt in the conference play. How big of a win is this, Rocco?
Well, I think it's huge. I mean, they took a home upset December 6th against UC Riverside, so that certainly doesn't help their chances towards a league championship later. But I think winning at Fullerton, that's continuing to age better. Fullerton is on at least well out of the cellar that they were in last year. They beat UC Santa Barbara last night, and kind of a big statement for the Titans. So they've now got those 2 wins under their belt. They go to Long Beach and CSUN as their next 2 league games. We'll see how they play there. But I think in general, Cal Poly is kind of always in close games. You know, they've lost really kind of ridiculous games when you look at losing to both UCR, SEMO, even their home loss to Idaho right before Christmas. And so I think that's the problem, is they play close with everybody, but it's also a lot of upside because in the Big West tournament, obviously they got to figure out how to get more consistent with the winning, get a better seed. But I think in the Big West tournament, they're going to be incredibly dangerous.
And Sean, I'm going to tease this next one for you. I'll just say Illinois State had a very happy holiday.
Yeah, I mean, this one that I'm going to talk about is more kind of like a sum of games rather than just one individual performance, because I think we need to shine some light on just how good Illinois State has been lately. And early in the year, they were 1-2. They lost that game at Ohio. They lost to USC. I feel like we kind of just stopped talking about them, which was fair because they didn't look very impressive in any of those games. Chase Walker was getting constant foul trouble, and then their defense was just looking kind of like what it was last year, which was a very poor defense, even that game against Long Beach State. But starting really on November 23rd, they totally flipped the script. They held Coastal Carolina to 42, and since then, they have just been awesome on the defensive end of the floor. They haven't allowed more than 80 points to any team except for Utah State, and that's a really good Utah State team in that span, and that's a pretty healthy span at this point. In conference play, they're 4-0 with wins over Southern Illinois, Indiana State, Drake, and Evansville. So obviously not really the upper echelon of the league, although Southern Illinois is kind of in that mix a little bit, and a road win against them is pretty decent. But they held each of those teams to less than 1 point per possession. They held all of them to below 70 points, and now Illinois State is up to 61st in KenPom's defensive efficiency. Last year, they were 237th in KenPom's defensive efficiency. So they have just gotten so much better on that end of the floor this year. And they're not quite as potent as they were offensively last year, but they're still top 100 offensively. They're going to continue to get better because Chase Walker is getting in less foul trouble. It's Valley play, which means he is ready to turn it on. And they have enough pieces around him that can shoot it, like a Ty Pence, like a Landon Wolf, like a Tyreek Coleman, who's been a great addition for them, and Bowden Skunberg, the transfer from NDSU. Now that he's healthy, he's been awesome for him, shooting over 40% from 3. So I think this Illinois State team deserves all the attention. They would be my number 1 team in the mid-major poll right now. I think they are on a really good pace, and I think they have a good chance to not only win this conference, but make some noise if they get to the NCAA tournament.
Rocco, we've got our mid-season mid-major awards coming up after the break, but before we get there, I do want to hit on a game that was a close one, the 62-63 win for Hampton over Towson. Talk me through that one and how Hampton was able to pull off a win.
Well, it was a gritty possession-by-possession second half all the way through. Gaines Wyatt for Hampton has continued to emerge as a bulldog that can make big plays in the big moments. It was basically him those last 5 or 6 possessions, and he had the game-winning 3-point play. They're down 62-60. He puts them up 63-62 with the 3-point play, and I think he just won CAA Player of the Week, or if that didn't come out yet, I'm sure he will. But he had himself a great game as a catalyst and a leader. A little bit of a surprise. He played at Alcorn State the last 2 years. Great find by Ivan Thomas. He ends up with 15 points in the game, but again, a great closer. He's actually had 4 20-plus point games already this season. And I think Hampton's the big surprise. Like, to truly answer your question at the beginning, when you asked about who had the biggest or the best wins, I don't think anybody expected Hampton to start 2-0. We had Stony Brook ranked at 1 point. They beat them. We've had Towson in the poll pretty much most of the season. and take them out as well. So I know it's just 2 home wins, but what an impressive statement from the Pirates. And I think they're going to be feisty all year because they're playing terrific defense and they can rebound really well to keep the games low scoring and stay in the fight till the end. And now they have a bona fide closer with Gaines Wyatt.
Yeah, the defense certainly stood out to me. 11 lead changes, 12 ties, but Hampton held the Tigers to 38% shooting and just 16% from 3. That'll be able to keep them afloat, I think, as we float through conference play. We're going to head to break, but when we come back, we will be talking mid-season, mid-major awards. Your coach so far, your player of the year so far, surprises, all of that coming up next on the Mid-Major Show.
As you know by now, we have teamed up with BetMGM again this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we will have special offers for Field of 68 fans, including same-game parlays, best-in-class live betting, and daily odds boost. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code FIELD to get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. You download the BetMGM app, you sign up using bonus code FIELD, you deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use that bonus code FIELD when you sign up. Make this college basketball season one for the history books. Make it legendary. And don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code FIELD and get your $1,500 first bet offer today.
Are you trying to follow everything happening in college basketball? It can be overwhelming. That's where the Field of 68 Daily comes into play. The Daily is your go-to source for recruiting news, game analysis, portal updates, and much, much more. For just $50 a year, you get access to the same information that your favorite coaching staff is subscribed to. Quality content can be hard to find in the college basketball space. The Daily is here to help. Make sure you subscribe today.
If you're not a member of the Field of 68's On3 community, make sure to go check us out. Get access to all of Jeff Goodman and Rob Doster's written content, including coaching carousel breakdowns, info on who is and isn't entering the transfer portal, insider recruiting information from none other than Joe Tipton, X's and O's analysis of all the teams in college basketball, and access to our message board community. A 7-day trial costs you $1. The Field of 68 On3. Get the scoop.
Welcome back, Rocco Miller, Sean Paul. I'm Vince Wolfram. We're back and we're talking mid-season awards for mid-major basketball. Guys, this is a fun time because the conference play is beginning. Well, non-conference play, we're going to wrap a bow on it here and highlight some of our best surprises, best players, best coaches, all the things. We will get to it here in the next 30 minutes on the Mid-Major Show. And I think the best place to start is with the coaches that are leading the charge. Let's start with your mid-major, mid-season coach of the year. Sean, we're going to start with you. First half, who do you got?
Yeah, I kind of talked about this team a little bit earlier, but I'm going with Todd Phillips at Utah Valley. In just kind of the era that we're in, if you lose your 3 best players, which is what Utah Valley did from last season, they lost Carter Welling, they lost Dominic Nelson, they lost Tanner Toulson. You can put Trevin Linhart kind of in that conversation. He's probably one of their 3 best players overall, and he's back. But they lost 3 guys to the high major level. For a lot of teams, that'll probably take them out of the race for the next season. But Utah Valley is even better this year, and that's just incredible to me. They're sandwiched in between Syracuse and Mississippi State on Ken Palm at number 81, and they have 3 losses this year, all to Mountain West teams, all on the road. That Fresno State loss kind of stings a little bit because they probably are the better team there. And they have a close loss to San Diego State and a blowout loss to Boise State. Every other game has been really impressive from this Utah Valley squad. And again, it's just the defense. Their defense is so good. They force turnovers 20% of the time. They're 56 in defensive efficiency. And everybody's kind of stepped up this year. Jackson Holcomb's become an even better player. Trevin Linhart's just such a steady point guard. And then even though they lost Tanner Toulson to the transfer portal, they pretty much traded him for Tyler Hendricks. The brother of Taylor Hendricks is with the Utah Jazz, and he's been awesome this year. The transfer from UCF. He's shooting 47% from three this year, one of the better shooters in college basketball, and he was such a big-time portal addition for him. Hayden Welling, the brother of Carter Welling, he's a floor stretcher for this team too. Isaac Davis, he's been really productive inside, shooting 58% from inside the arc. But this Utah Valley team, I mean, if you're a coach and you lose your three best players from the prior season and you have a team that's over 30 spots better in KenPom and inside the top 100 and knocking on the door of top 75, I think you deserve this award.
Utah Valley getting all kinds of love in today's show. Rocco, your mid-major coach of the year so far.
Yeah, I got to go with Brian Earl. I think it's of William and Mary, of course. I think it's been an incredible job here in year two, sitting here at 11-3, 2-0 in the CAA. But it's the way they're playing and the adversity they've already gone through. So I was there with them in Jacksonville around Thanksgiving. They had 2 games with Abilene Christian and UTEP. That's not really the point. The point is, during that tournament, both Kyle Pulliam and Reese Miller went down and were not available for the second game. And they ended up missing significant time, at least 2 or 3 weeks each. They're now both fully healthy. But what it told us was this William and Mary team is legitimate 1 through 8 deep, and there's no drop off. Because from that time, from leaving Jacksonville, they go on and win at Duquesne, a statement road win in the A10. They handle their business with regional rival Old Dominion. They rattled off an opening win in convincing fashion against one of the preseason favorites in Towson, and then of course just rampaged Stony Brook in the second game here recently. All in all, it's been nothing but impressive. I think that win at Bowling Green early in the season has aged nothing but well. And I think the other part of it is, guys, is last year they had a reputation of just live and die by the three. We're going to create all sorts of three-pointers and shoot a high volume of threes. Well, this year there's a much bigger balance. They're only taking 32% of they're only getting 32% of their overall points from downtown. They're getting to the line much more frequently. They've added, I think, a couple of key big pieces, but led by Tunde Valberg Fasasi, who's just been excellent on all ends of the floor. They have a really good emotional leader in Joel Emmanuel, who can play the 4 as well, a little bit of the 3. And Killian Brockhoff is an extra nice piece as well, who can get block shots, steals, and rebounds himself. So I think the entire roster is built to handle injuries, to play in different ways, and to pass the ball. Much like I talked about with Liberty earlier, this team is really, really effective passing and sharing the ball. There's absolutely no egos on the team. And this team is much more than just a fun team to watch or a team you got to get your eyes on, watch Brian Earl's system. It is a bona fide, really, really good and dangerous team, and clearly either a favorite or certainly a contender to be the representative in CAA. And it has to be the biggest story in all of mid-major basketball, because William & Mary has like 100 years of history and the oldest basketball team to never make the NCAA tournament.
And now they can add to that piece of history that they got a mid-major, mid-season Coach of the Year candidate there. Most award shows, they do mention the candidates and the finalists for these awards. Field of 68 here, we do it backwards. But I am curious, atop these lists of coaches, what were some other options that were going through your mind of coaches that are just having great years that we want to highlight? Sean, we'll start with you.
Yeah, it was down to really 3 for me. Rocco took my other one I was going to go with, and obviously Coach Earl. I think he's just done such a good job at William and Mary, like Rocco touched on. I mean, this team has a chance to make the first NCAA tournament in the program's history. Coach Earl did an awesome job in the transfer portal and kind of surrounding his connective piece in Chase Lowe's, kind of just a do-it-all point guard for this team with a bunch of pieces who fit the system really well. You have Pulliam, who can shoot it. He's also back. Kate Haskins has been a big-time shooter from Dartmouth. And just everybody kind of fits in the system. And I think sometimes that's more important than just pure talent, just getting guys that fit into what you want to do. And Brian Earl has done an awesome job with that. And the other one is Travis Steele. I mean, it's kind of crazy that neither of us picked him, and Miami, Ohio is 14-0. But that just kind of goes to show just how good he's been the last couple of seasons. And now, obviously, the road gets a little bit tougher with Evan Ipsaro being out for the season. And when Coach Steele joined us, he talked so much about Ipsaro. But this team will be just fine without him. Nothing against Ipsaro, but they have Peter Suter, who can handle the ball handling duties, and Luke Skaljak, who did a really good job in the first game without Ipsaro. He had 5 assists against Bowling Green. So I think that duo will do a fine enough job with the ball handling duties with the Ipsaro out for the season. Miami, Ohio is not going to go undefeated the entire season, especially with a game against Akron looming tomorrow. But Miami, Ohio, they're going to be really good. They have a chance to make the NCAA tournament. And I still think Travis Steele deserves a shout out here, although he didn't get either of our Coach of the Year awards.
Well, he's lucky that he did get mine. I guess now he gets mine. He didn't 25 minutes ago, but that is a great one that I think that's totally worth noting. Let's go now from coaches. Rocco, give me some more coaches that you had your eye on too. Sean listed a couple of them, but there's so many out there that are having impressive years.
Yeah, well, I think you got to go to Ryan Miller at Murray State. I get that they're loaded talent-wise, but that's all due to him and the staff he built. I think if you, in today's day and age, if you go out in the portal and you turn around a program and you also are performing against that, again, he's had to go out and improve himself, and they've got some big, really nice wins that have showcased that the Racers are for real. And right now, of course, tied for first place in the Valley. Those big wins were George Washington down in the Cayman Islands. He beat Akron pretty handily out in Vegas, 115-100. A win over Drake in Southern Illinois early in league play have bona fide them as a top-tier contender. So all in all, just a really nice job since Ryan Miller got the job. I know he expects that of himself, but again, if you're a first-year coach, you're primed in season to win these types of awards. So he's right up there. And then I would also just say, George Halkovich, we'll see what Buffalo becomes, but just the fact that Buffalo's still in the mix of these discussions, sitting here at 12-2 after a couple of really, really rough years. One of the best ways to win Coach of the Year, sadly, is to have bad years and then suddenly be good. And George figured out the formula this year, so congrats to George. But I think in a true Coach of the Year voting, he would be I would not be surprised if he actually won the vote based on being 12-2, getting that win at DePaul. That's a bona fide Big East road win. They have some other nice wins along the way. Unfortunately, that East Carolina loss, I know they would like to have that back. They could be 13-1. But I think I've seen enough, and they've also started dominant in their 2 MAC wins, that I expect them to stay in the MAC mix throughout the duration, despite the fact that the MAC has elite contenders like Akron, Miami, as Sean said, and Kent State, all very, very good, and the rest of the league coming up like Bowling Green and Toledo and others. But Halkovich, much like Ryan Miller, going out and getting Daniel Freitag in the portal, really changed the game, and he's got some really good pieces around him with Sable and Angelo Brizzi, and of course Tim Obo, and Noah Bachelor. So I think the Buffalo Bulls, if we're doing midseason awards, they could win a lot of these.
Yeah, sometimes you got to get to the top of the mountain by walking through the valley, right? So you gotta go through some hardships sometime to win Coach of the Year. Let's head to our next mid-season, mid-major award here, Player of the Year, a very highly sought after one, and there's so many options to choose from. We'll go to Rocco first on this one. Rocco, your mid-major non-conference Player of the Year.
Yeah, I know Sean's got the same guy, but Nolan Minisale's kind of been the do-it-all player for St. Thomas. Of course, already probably getting texts and calls from high majors with his remaining eligibility, but he's just been splendid in all areas. Whether it's blocks, steals, assists, ball security, passing the ball. He scores at a super high clip, particularly inside the arc at 66%. He's just done it all for St. Thomas. And a big reason why they remain to be one of the favorites, in the Summit League. So I go Nolan Minisale as the well-deserved, probably winner of the award, since Sean and I both had him.
Good answer, and I'm sure Sean, you'll have points to add there too. But I also want to hear some of the guys that you had in mind in addition to Nolan.
Yeah, I mean, Nolan Minnesale, just the fact that he's taken on this bigger role so far this year. They lost some pieces of the portal, St. Thomas did, and Minnesale just taking his game to a whole nother level as a sophomore. He's getting to the foul line double the amount of times he got to the foul line last year, 7 times per game. He's shooting more threes this year, not to a great efficiency, only 29% from three. But if that's the only knock in his game, it's been a pretty incredible season for him and St. Thomas so far. Johnny Tower is an absolute stud player. 22 points per game, 4 rebounds per game, 4 assists per game. There's nothing that Nolan Minnesale really can't do on a basketball court. And the best part about it is he doesn't really have a defined position. He's kind of just like, you hear positionless player. He is a positionless player. You can really play him at the 4. You can play him at the 1. Doesn't really make a huge difference because he's going to impact the game in so many different ways. I love his game. He's well deserving of this award. But the other player I was really considering was Tavari Johnson from Akron, a guy that I've just been a huge fan of throughout his entire career. And he's been so efficient so far this year. He was really good last year, 13 points per game. Nate Johnson, I believe, ended up winning Conference Player of the Year. But it's going to be Tavari Johnson's award in the MAC Player of the Year race more than likely this year. He's shooting 56% from the field, 42% from 3, averaging 20 points per game, 5 assists per game, just 1.5 turnovers per game. It's been a pretty flawless season so far from Tavari Johnson. And if you're telling me the ball has to be in one mid-major player's hands to go win you a game, to go make a shot, I'm trusting Tavari Johnson over just about anybody else because he is a big-time shot maker. If Akron gets back to the NCAA tournament this year, I'm expecting Johnson to tear it up.
Akron with a big game coming up against undefeated Miami, Ohio. That should be a good one. Let's jump into our next category of the surprise team. One, if I had a soundboard, I would hit the ooh and the ah sound effect. Rocco, we'll start with you here, man. Surprise team so far at the midseason point.
Well, it's a great question. I am going to take Hofstra here because Hofstra, first of all, 15-18, a disappointing year. Great program. Speedy Claxton did a great job early in his tenure. And, of course, he's a Hofstra legend, so program means a lot to him. But they're kind of like the Seton Hall version. Shout out to our producer, Dagan, of mid-major basketball because, Speedy's a former point guard. He's tough as nails. And he found a guy in Cruz Davis who borderline could be also our player of the year. So it's hand in hand from the last question. But the fact that they were 15-18 last year, they weren't expected to do a lot preseason. They were picked 8th in the CAA. And now, and they started the season 0-2. So if you would have gone back to our second episode of the season, Hofstra was on none of our radars. Well, since that day, they're 10-2. They have wins at Syracuse, wins at Pittsburgh. They're undefeated so far in CAA with that early win over Campbell to get off the ground with a good start. They're clearly, right there on the borderline of our top 10 right now in all of mid-major basketball. Cruz Davis Jr., like I said, he's just been an unbelievable player. And I think Hofstra I keep looking at him over and over and thinking, okay, when are they going to fall back to the middle of the pack? We got used to that last year and the year before. So I think it's just been really impressive. Right before the Campbell win, one of our other top 20-ish teams is Quinnipiac, a team I just saw on Monday. And they handled them, no problem, 74-66. So I think Hofstra really deserves a lot of flowers here midseason.
Absolutely deserving. Sean, your surprise team so far.
Yeah, at the time I didn't know that Rocco was going with Brian Earl to win his Coach of the Year. Maybe I would have went with a little bit of a different approach here, but William and Mary is my pick for the surprise team. But I mean, they deserve all the credit in the world, so we can't talk enough about them really. They started the year at 231st in KenPom, and they're 112th now. And I just think the storyline of a team that has been at the D1 level this long, and that the fact that they haven't made the NCAA tournament, and this team, like, it's not a mirage. Like, this team has a legitimate chance to make the NCAA tournament, and I think right now they are the best team in the CAA. With all the pieces they have, with the offense and the defense they play, they force a ton of turnovers. Their interior defense isn't great, but with the pressure that they have, that's going to be kind of a byproduct of that. They have so much depth. They have so much shooting. They shoot 60% from inside the arc. I just love this William and Mary team, and I would love to see them make the NCAA tournament. I just think that would be one of the storylines of the Big Dance. Just a team that has never gotten there, a team that has finally gotten there. It would just be one of the biggest storylines, and I think the fact that they were ranked so lowly in KenPom and they were 17-15 last year, a solid season. They've improved across the board, especially defensively this year. I think they've been a pretty big surprise because I kind of tabbed them as a middle of the pack team in the CAA. I didn't really foresee them being the number one team in the CAA, and that's kind of how I view it right now.
Surpassing expectations, certainly this William Mary team has done that so far. Let's take a little step back, a broader scale here for our next three categories of awards. We're going to go to the Conference of the Year. A lot to choose from, obviously. We cover mid-major basketball, plenty of options. Rocco, I'll start with you. Your Conference mid-major, mid-season of the Year award.
Well, we'll give it to the Valley, but I think, the Valley's about where we thought they would be. It is the best league in general that we cover. Conference USA, arguably right next to them. I think actually Conference USA outperformed the Valley just slightly last year, but it all depends on how you look at it. You can look at it from the standpoint of who's going to deliver us the most dangerous conference champion. I think the Valley would probably win that tiebreaker right now. You also can look at it from the overall body of work, from one, in their case, from 1 to 11, the depth of the Valley is pretty deep. Obviously, very, very much 7 strong, as we said preseason. But like Sean said earlier, the emergence of Indiana State, I know they're sitting there at just 1-3, but let's just take a look at their last, couple of performances. Hung with Northern Iowa for most of the game. In fact, they led that game at halftime yesterday. And they eventually fade by 9, but that shows they're a bona fide threat. They got the win over Belmont. The Triple OT Classic, the last show we recorded, December 18th, that was that night. Obviously, I think a couple missteps there by the Sycamores probably should have won the game, especially in regulation. That's one that slipped away, made up for it a little bit with the Belmont win. But the fact that Indiana State's in these games shows the league is at least 8 deep, and then there's still hope, I think, for teams like Valparaiso and UIC, who UIC battled Murray State to the final horn last night. So I think the Valley is going to produce, of course, the deepest league, and I think as long as you get an Illinois State, a Murray State, a Belmont, a Northern Iowa, even, and then of course Bradley's very tough defensively. And they have arguably the best player in the league so far, at least according to KenPom, they do with Jaquan Johnson's performances. You're going to get a great representative, as always, from the league.
100%. And Sean, are you rocking with the MVC as well?
Oh, yeah, easily. I mean, they're just so impressive. I mean, the bottom is better than I thought, for sure. But even talking about, like, UIC, right? Like, they lost to Arkansas Pine Bluff. That game was really weird, and they've lost a lot of games this year. They're 5-9. They don't have any league wins, but realistically, they could have won any of their league games that they've lost so far. They lost to 3 at Belmont. They lost by 6 at home against Northern Iowa, a game that they really controlled a lot of the way throughout and just couldn't buy a bucket late in that game. And it was more like a 2 or 3 point game, and then Northern Iowa hit some late free throws. And that Murray State game, like, UIC could have won that game last night. So there is a world where UIC could be 3-0 in conference play, but that's not how the cookie crumbles here. But they're clearly a team that can go win some games in this conference, right? Like, they are good enough to do that. Andy Johnson's a stud freshman. They have some solid interior players. Abdul Momo has been really good for them. Jason Nathaniel's been really good as a freshman. But just the fact that you have a team that's second to last in KenPom in the league, and they almost beat 3 of the best teams in the league, just goes to show how deep this league is this year. Everybody outside of Evansville, with all due respect to Evansville, I think you can look at in a night in night out basis, and they can go and win just about any game they play.
Yeah, top to bottom, certainly one of the best. I mean, if it gets your 2 votes, that means they're trending in a very good direction. We talked about the surprise players. What's a surprise conference, Rocco Miller, that you would applaud to this point in the season?
I'm going to go back to the MAC. I kind of spilled the beans a little bit during the George Halkovich Love Festival in the last segment, but I think the Bulls, the Bulls are a big reason. I'd like to highlight them as I already did, and Bowling Green. Bowling Green is a team that they're really trying to rebuild the program under Todd Simon. They've certainly made a huge step this year, highlighted by the big win, dominating win at Kansas State on the beginning of December. Of course, a little bit of a setback losing at home to both the undefeated Redhawks of Miami, Ohio, and that Utah Valley team who we highlighted. So those are 2 of the best teams. William & Mary also came in there and beat them. But they have no bad losses, in my opinion. Those are 3 of our top 10 most likely, and then you have Davidson on the road by 4. Other than that, they've been perfect. So just adding, like I said, adding more depth. And I was very impressed as well, because I think, a lot of people will look at the Ohio University Bobcats record of 7-7 and not think much. But if you look and dive into their schedule, outside of the surprise home loss to Bethune-Cookman, they did have to play at St. Mary's, at Louisville, at an Arkansas State team that's winning the Sun Belt right now, that Bowling Green team. But Ohio U has beat St. Bonaventure and Illinois State. And they opened up, they got a road win in conference at the Chippewas, who are struggling. But I am not writing off Ohio U at all. They're a dangerous team with good pieces, and I think they're going to learn a lot of lessons from all those big schools they played, and that certainly already showed when they beat the Bonnies in Cleveland in December. And you look at Toledo, they're a very capable team still with some offensive weapons. You look at Eastern Michigan, that's a team that's beat Cincinnati. They're clearly a little bit dangerous themselves. And then you have UMass in the league, not playing well. They're off to an 0-2 start, but they had a week where they beat 2 ACC teams. And that's just the meat of the conference. I haven't even highlighted, I think the 3 favorites are pretty clearly Miami, Ohio, Akron, and Kent State. And so you've got a full-fledged you have to remember, only the top 8 teams go to Cleveland for the conference tournament. And so I think I just listed 8. If those are our 8, we're going to have a wide-open MAC tournament no matter what the seeds are, in my opinion.
And that's gonna be good. Sean Paul and I are gonna be popcorned up watching that one. Who is your pick for the surprise conference of the year to this point, Sean?
Yeah, for me, it's going to be the Southland. I think a lot of people kind of thought with Will Wade leaving McNeese that it was kind of just going to be the Southland going back to what the Southland was. And I didn't completely think that, but I thought it was going to matter enough to where McNeese was not going to be a top 70 team in the country. I thought they'd be good, but they have been really good this year, and they're obviously what's leading this conference because they've just been terrific. 10-3 so far this year. That loss to Incarnate Word kind of shows how good this conference is, but they're 18th in Ken Palm's conference rankings this year. Last year, they were 19th, so they've gotten even better. And we're talking about a league that 3 years ago was 29th, and for about a decade from 2011 to 2024, they were consistently a bottom 5 conference in college basketball. So the fact that the Southland is now 18th is pretty impressive. Stephen F. Austin, their resurgence, has played a really large role in this. Matt Brower's done a great job to getting them back to what they want to be defensively. They're top 100 defense in the country. Then you have Incarnate Word. When you have a guard duo like Taj Sabeski and Davion Bailey, you're going to win a healthy amount of games. New Orleans, obviously, getting that big win over TCU has carried a lot of weight. But even like a UTRGV, they could be really feisty. Houston Christian, they're a really tough defensive team. They have a good culture going over there. And then you have Nichols. I mean, Coach Sadler always does a really good job. So far, they're 4-0 in conference play. So I just think from top to bottom, like the Southland a few years ago when Northwestern State was kind of doing their thing, and Texas A&M Corpus Christi, they were kind of the only 2 teams worth watching for the most part. And now you have a league filled with teams that are actually worth watching, a league with teams that have talent. Some of these teams have some decent resources in terms of NIL that's helped boost their overall programs. But I just think from top to bottom, like where this league was a few years ago to where they are now, and just way more competitive. Like nobody thought McNeese State was going to lose in that conference tournament the last 2 years. Wasn't even close. This year it's an actual conversation because you have teams like Stephen F. Austin and Incarnate Word who can definitely go and win that conference tournament title over McNeese, which definitely wasn't the case the last 2 seasons. So I think the Southland is definitely the surprise for me.
The Southland and the MAC going away with our trophies for surprise conference so far. And Sean, you mentioned one word earlier that just makes it feel like we're inching towards March, that word being Cinderella. And at this point in the year with conference play still to go, there's so much shakeup that's still left to happen. It is way too early to predict Cinderellas, but we're going to do it. Let's do it. All right, Sean, we'll start with you. You're way too early Cinderella pick for the NCAA tournament from a mid-major school.
Yeah, I know I probably sound like I'm contradicting myself a little bit here because I talked about Illinois State being awesome and I talked about these other Valley teams. But if you told me right now I had to pick one team to pull a couple upsets, I think Murray State has a really good chance to do that because to win against those high major teams that you're inevitably going to play as a 12 or a 13 seed, you need to have some length to be able to compete. And Murray State has about as much length and athleticism as you'll find for a team at this level. Obviously, the NIL resources help, but Fred King, he is just an absolute monster. He is a high major big man, 6'9", 267. He had 18 points and 16 rebounds against UIC. He's just no match for him in the Missouri Valley with how dominant he is and how big he is. Then you have Mason Miller, you have JJ Trainer, guys who were at the high major level. Then you have Roman Doman, who has been awesome so far this year. The French freshman, he's been very impressive at 6'9". You have a lot of depth on this Murray State team. You have guys like Dylan Anderson and KJ Tenner, who if they have to step into larger roles, they can. Same goes for Braden Shorter. I just love where this Murray State team is headed. They have a ton of depth. They play really fast, which is always fun to watch. I think they have even more room to grow defensively, but they're a really good offensive team too. I think they have a really good shot to pull an upset in the NCAA tournament just because they can win in a lot of different ways. They have the size and athleticism to compete against those bigger teams. Like a team against Liberty, they're always going to have a tough time in the NCAA tournament because they don't have that size, but Murray State has all the size needed to go beat a high major team.
The Racers potentially racing to a fun time in the March Madness NCAA tournament. Rocco, you're way too early Cinderella team to go dance.
Sean's on the same wavelength I'm on. I like the Murray State pick, so I pivoted over to UNC Wilmington. Again, another CAA team that we haven't even spent a lot of time on. They had a recent loss at home to Howard, so certainly a good time to bring up a sleeper like them while they're asleep. But they still only have 2 losses on the season. One of the unfortunate things for those of us as analysts is they didn't have to play a high major. This is one of the mid-major schools with an amazing budget. Their roster speaks to that, and they didn't have to go get bought by a Power 5 team. So we don't know what it looks like when they play one, but what we do know is that they're 8th in the country in positional size. They don't play a player shorter than 6'5". So much to Sean's point, they're going to be able to just straight up match up size-wise, and in fact, they might even have size advantages depending on who the matchup might be if they're able to win the CAA tournament. And so you look at a Patrick Wessler at 7 foot 250 who transferred in from Virginia Tech. He has the ability to completely dominate the glass, which he's been doing in most of their games. He's a significant shot blocker. You could see that even go up in the future if you measure out what that projection looks like. And I like the fact that both the threesome of Greedy Williams, Nolan Hodge, and Noah Ross, they've all been playing together for over a year at least. And so Christian May has tons of experience coming over from Towson. They don't have a big rotation, so it's going to have to continue to be a clean bill of health for 2.5 more months. Again, that's no guarantee by any stretch. But if a team can match up and really positionally size, grind away a 40-minute segment-by-segment upset in March Madness, this team has the blueprint for it. In fact, go back and watch last year, Vince. Texas Tech was on the ropes against these guys. So they know exactly what to do, and that's kind of why I like their odds, especially if they get a second crack at it.
100%, they're right there, and we're only just a couple months away from March being a reality. It feels so distant now, but it'll be here before we know it. That is your mid-major, mid-season awards, all 6 categories, top to bottom, from the 2 best in the game. And the good part about us calling our Cinderella picks is that it's basically calling our shot twice, because we're going to get to call our shot here now. And we're doing it a little different now that we're heading into conference play. Non-conference, we were picking a mid-major to beat a high major, but since these mid-majors are playing each other now, it's harder to find those. So we're going to look now to try to find a 10-point underdog per KenPom was the task this week. Let's go left to right on your screen. Rocco, we'll start with you, then go me, Sean, and producer Dagan will come in at the end. Rocco, we'll start with you.
And I'll just say I'm very excited that we're doing this for league play now, because it's actually, I feel better about my chances, because so many of these the coaches out there, especially ones that have been around these leagues, some of these guys just have each other's numbers. So I'm going to take one of those matchups, and it's the Conference USA Championship game rematch this Sunday, and it's going to be at Liberty, a team I saw, and I have nothing but respect for, of course, that program and Richie McKay. But Ray Harper has, you go back 2 years ago, he swept Liberty, and Liberty's kind of shaky Conference USA entrance to the league. Last year, Liberty figured things out, ends up beating Jacksonville State for the championship. But don't forget, Jacksonville State won round one last year. So in both years so far, Jacksonville State's won the round one matchup. And a big reason why, of course, if you know the Gamecocks program, that matchup zone can play fits on teams like Liberty. They won't have those free-flowing passing lanes against the Gamecocks. As the season goes on, just in general with Ray Harper's teams, they get better and better at perfecting that defense. I'm encouraged by the last two Jacksonville State results, which were a road win at ETSU by 6 just before the Christmas holiday, and then a home win, a very impressive one over a good WKU team by 11. A game in which, I might add, Western Kentucky was held to 36% shooting and didn't have a surplus of turnovers, but Ryan Myers, one of their key players, did turn it over 4 times. And so Liberty knows what they're up against here coming on Sunday. They can't really focus on Jacksonville State all that much because guess what, guys? Today's Friday, and Liberty's playing Kennesaw State tonight. So on a very short prep, Jacksonville State, they've got a real chance here. They're going to be at Delaware tonight. Again, Delaware's had some bad performances. If things can go well there, and Jacksonville State can turn their attention late in the game to Liberty, I feel like much more comfortable picking this upset because I would actually see it as not too big of a surprise.
Yeah, those short-term turnarounds, you never know how those games might go. And I guess we went from that 10-point KenPom range to that 8 or 9 because there's so many good conference games. The play is just so tight this time around. And I know we've talked a lot about Buffalo on this show today, but Rocco, I hate to spoil it. I'm going to spoil the party here. I'm going Ball State to beat Buffalo on Saturday. They had a defense that can be sneaky good. Top 75 in defensive turnover percentage, top 100 in steal percentage. They lost to an unbeaten Miami, Ohio team by just 9 before Christmas. They scheduled a Division III team, Earlham, and beat them 93-30. So they're going up against this Buffalo Bulls team with some confidence. They've scored the ball a ton in their last one. I think maybe they keep that momentum going. I know Buffalo does have a very high-efficient, high-powered offense, but they're going to try to stop Buffalo from scoring the ball on all 3 levels. I'm going Ball State to go on the road, try to escape with its first MAC win of the season.
Yeah, I'm rolling with Hampton over UNC Wilmington. Obviously, we talked about UNC Wilmington right there with Rocco, but this one, to me, Hampton just kind of hot right now, and with the way both of these teams play, they both play really, really slow. I think that can kind of lead to an upset occasionally. If UNCW is a little bit off on the offensive end, which has been their strength so far this year, and they are really good on the glass, especially the offensive glass, that could be a problem for Hampton. But in a game where two teams are both really tough, they can both defend, both play a really slow tempo, I think that can be an occasional upset watch to have happen, and I like the way this Hampton team is playing right now. I hope they have Mike Ely back for that game because they need his scoring. But overall, I think that Hampton has a toughness and defensive ability to compete with just about anybody in the CAA on the right night, and I could see them getting an upset win over UNC Wilmington.
I like it. Producer Dagan, call your shot.
All right, fellas. I actually just made a last-minute switch. I just switched it right now. So I'm not going with my gut like I did earlier. But I'm going with Charleston Southern over Winthrop. I believe that is next Wednesday. We're gonna go with the Buccaneers coming off a big win against Richmond. Obviously, got to go win against Gardner Webb as well, and have UNC Asheville in between this and this Winthrop game. So, but give me the Bucks. They're riding high right now. We'll go with them. That's really the only reason I got. Last week I had a big old reason, or 2 weeks ago I had a big old reason, and Penn lost at the buzzer. So we're just going with no reason whatsoever.
Should have been a win.
Sometimes the best reason is to have no reason. So we're right there with you, producer Dagan. Hopefully we've got 4 shots that will be called at some point in the next week. But this has been the Mid-Major Show alongside Rocco Miller and Sean Paul. We went over our mid-season awards. We dished it out. Guys highlighted all over the board because it's been a great season so far, and we've got conference play still to go, and we cannot wait. We'll be back next Thursday, so make sure to be tuned in here on the Field of 60.